He's in a box, John. And he can go on and on about how NATO loves him and talk about the session, but he's in a box alone. And frankly, I don't see much support from anyone else.
Now let us cross to Ankara, the NATO summit, where President Trump has come to the podium for his news conference at the conclusion of these proceedings. Many things on the agenda. Many things we're keen to hear the thoughts of Donald Trump on them, ranging from the Gulf, where President Trump has said the ceasefire with Iran is over. Is that clearly the case? He's also said that Iran should expect a major strike tonight. He said it's possible that there could be a U.S. assault on Karg Island on the Strait of Hormuz, that strategically vital a piece of land, which is an oil hub for the Iranian regime. We also hear on the European front that Donald Trump, he told this to President Zelensky, that Ukraine will have licenses to produce vital Patriot missiles. That and many more things. Let's now cross to Ankara. President Trump live at the microphone.
Well, it's important stuff. And, you know, our team out here, they've all become stars, superstars, actually. But we want to thank you very much. We've had a tremendous time and I think a great success. And we just concluded a very successful NATO summit here in Turkey. And I want to thank President Erdogan, who's really a great man. He's a great leader. He's a friend of mine, been a friend of mine for a long time. He's a strong person, a very strong personality, and that's why he runs such a successful and good country, and really a great, I would say, a great country. Militarily, he's very powerful. People leave him alone, but he's really done a fantastic job. And from the moment we got off the plane, you look at the airports were beautiful. They built a new terminal for our arrival. Everything was beautiful. And so I just want to thank President Erdogan, who's done a fantastic job in Turkey. And I also want to thank NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Mark is an extraordinary person, smart, great leader. It's not easy leading so many leaders like that. You get a lot of leaders, and they're strong personalities, every one of them. And Mark does an unbelievable job. Couldn't find anybody better. I just want to say there was tremendous love in that room. The press got to see the sitting, but they didn't get to see the speaking. And I actually said, it's too bad the press couldn't see this, because every one of them spoke for a little while, and I spoke for a little while. And it's a lot of speeches. We kept it short, but it's too bad the press couldn't have seen what we were doing in that room, because it was very smart people, and they have a lot of good in their heart, not evil, good. And they're doing a great job for their country. The world is doing well. We have, as you know, the oil is down. We'll see whether or not we keep it down. We should keep it down. We're doing things that should have been done 47 years ago with Iran. And I just want to say that throughout my first term and over the past 18 months, the United States has led a historic effort to dramatically increase the defense spending and to have equipment that no other country in the world has. When you look at Venezuela, when you look at Iran, essentially demolished their military in a couple of weeks. They had a good military, they had a good Navy, they had 159 ships, everyone's at the bottom of the sea. They had hundreds of airplanes, they're all gone. They were all lying burned up on the runways. They were totally decimated, their radar's gone. Everything's gone, their leaders are gone, frankly. And their combat capability is pretty low. They have a small percentage of missiles left. They have some of the launchers, missile launchers left, call them launching pads, but most of that's been destroyed too. So we have the strongest military in the world by far, not even close, everybody admits it. Last year's summit in the Netherlands was great also, and we achieved an unprecedented agreement to increase the annual defense spending, and it's the benchmark raising it from 2% to 5% of GDP, which everybody said was impossible. And now they're all thanking me, and most of the countries have agreed to it. We have a couple of that didn't, but I have a feeling they're going to, and pretty quickly. In fact, today they were very positive. One of them in particular was, I didn't think, a good team player. Today was a great team player. As all of the leaders understand very well, the United States remains by far the largest contributor to NATO, monetarily and maybe otherwise, and the strongest military anywhere in the world. And they respect us as a country. Again, they didn't respect us 2 years ago. They laughed at us. NATO laughed at us. Everybody laughed at us. They don't laugh anymore. There's no more laughing. This year we invested a record $1 trillion in our armed forces, and we're going to be asking for $1.5 trillion coming up. We have the money being spent on the best equipment anywhere in the world. In the working session this morning, we discussed the progress other members are making toward the 5% target, and they're making great progress. Many of these countries are very rich, by the way. We don't have to feel sorry for them. But it doesn't mean they're properly protected. There's a big difference. Some have truly answered the call, and others are making big changes and will be answering the call. I think I can say in all cases they're going to be answering the call. And we'll be taking in over $1 trillion a year toward defense. And that's a tremendous amount of money. It's a big up. They were at 2%. They were actually at 1%. I got them to 2%. Then I wanted to get them to 5%. And we got up to 5% the last time. And they're, just again, if you could have seen the respect and the love in the room, and it's love really for the country, for our country. I don't want to say me, because you'll say, oh, he's so conceited. He's such a conceited person. But they do. I mean, they like the job I'm doing. They said, sir, we love you. These are grown people saying that. Isn't that nice? Maybe, I don't know, maybe they're trying to get to me. And in a way they did, because there was tremendous unity in that room. And I urge all nations to accelerate their plans to get the benchmark as quickly as possible. The benchmark is going to be that 5% number. That's the number it should have been for years. As a result of the commitment we achieved last year, defense spending of other NATO members surged by more than almost $150 billion in 2025, and much of that money is being spent on American-made equipment. They all want American-made equipment. We're pushing very hard to have the defense companies, and they're great. We make the best equipment, the Patriots and the Tomahawks, and everything we have is considered to be the best. Not by me, it's everybody wants it. I wish we made it faster, because we could sell as much as we could make. And as you know, I had Lockheed and every one of the companies, all of the companies who are Raytheon as an example, Boeing. So many of those great companies are now building plants. They had big plants, but they were using them 24/7. I said, that's not the way to do it. You have to build more plants. You don't have to just go overtime. No tax on overtime. Remember that, please? No tax on overtime. Those people are happy. But they were doing literally 24 hours to get the Tomahawks done and the Patriots done and all of the other defensive and offensive equipment done. It's the most sought-after equipment in the world. You saw that with Venezuela, where they had a lot of great equipment. It wasn't ours, and it didn't work. Our equipment works, but we have to produce it faster for other countries. For everybody, including ourselves, we have to produce it faster. So we think within a year and a half max, we'll be, instead of waiting for a year or 2 years, we'll be having it on a 2-week wait, maybe a 1-week wait. That's what I want. And it'll do really well. A lot of people are, just waiting. They're waiting. They want to get this defensive equipment, maybe in particular the defensive equipment, but offensive and defense. As much of that money is being spent on American-made equipment, that's the money that the European and Canada are spending, European countries mostly, and Canada. and they're spending that with the United States, largely. And it's American-made, made in the USA, as we say. Weapons, munitions, supporting thousands of American jobs. This will increase. We have the highest number of jobs. Right now, we have the most people working in the United States that we've ever had in the history of our country. We have the biggest investment ever made, $19.2 trillion. That's 6 times more than we've ever had. Think of it, 6 times more. And what did that were tariffs. Without the tariffs, I think we would have done fine, like at about 2 or 3. The last administration had much less than $1 trillion invested for 4 years. We have $19.2 trillion invested in 1 year. We haven't gone into the extra almost a half a year, 1.5 years. Those numbers won't come out for a little while. So we have 19.2 trillion, not billion, not million, trillion with a T, invested in plants and equipment that's being built all over the country. Eli Lilly is building plants, big drug, Merck, all of them. The drug companies are building. The car companies are building like crazy. In fact, as you probably saw a big announcement yesterday, Toyota is leaving Mexico, and they're going to build one of the biggest car manufacturing plants in the world in Texas. That's because of the tariffs, because we don't mind if you build in Mexico, but if you build in Mexico, you have to pay 25% tariff. If you build in Japan, or if you build in any place, China is a much higher tariff. It's 100% tariff, because we don't want to lose our jobs. We don't want to have our workers lose their jobs. We have the largest number of plants being built for the most money ever in the history of our country. Car plants, AI plants, and all other plants, pharmaceutical plants, chips. We're not giving anything. All we're saying is, if you don't start, if they will give them 1.5 to 2 years to build their plant. If they don't have that, they have to pay 100%, 200%, even 250%. If they make a chip, or if they make a car, if they make pharmaceuticals. So the pharmaceutical companies are moving in at record levels. There's never been anything like what's happening. Let me put it a different way, put it to you in a more broad fashion. There has never been anything like has happened with this country or any other country in the history of the world. There has never been growth. There's never been manufacturing plants being built. We have so many being built. And in the big ones, like AI, some of the AI, we let them build their own electric plants. We force them to build. We don't want it, because the old grid that we have wouldn't be able to supply it. They need, just as an industry, more energy than the entire country produces right now, when you think about it, which is incredible. So take all of the energy that the United States produces, and that one industry, which is so big, so powerful, it needs more than that. In fact, some people say almost double. So this was my idea. I said, you can never service that. You can't reinvigorate the grid. You can make it better, but nothing like that. You wouldn't be able to build. And we're leading China in AI, in just about everything. But we're leading China in AI. Even in TikTok, I was watching somebody say, oh, the TikTok deal. It's so bad for...
We're going to put away there from that live feed from President Trump at his close of conference, news conference, with his senior team standing behind him. Pete Hegseth is there, Marco Rubio. We got Scott Bessent. The president still, I suppose, warming to his task. He does not tend to rush to that point in these speeches, which tend to go on for a considerable time. But we're going to be watching the speech, and what I promise you will bring to you elements of the president's closing remarks that you will want to hear. And right now, while that address, while that news conference goes on, let me welcome to the program Aaron David Miller, the former U.S. Middle East negotiator, who's on the line. Hello to you, Aaron.
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm very well. Good to have you here, as always, Aaron. So while the president carries on offering his thoughts and his remarks, let's pick on something that was discussed earlier on. What did you make of President Trump's works on the U.S.-Iran ceasefire being over?
I mean, I think he's terribly frustrated and angry, but no one should be surprised at where we are. A flawed military campaign produced a flawed memorandum of understanding, which in turn produced a flawed process of implementation. You have an emboldened Iran that thinks it's won and is hanging deliberately onto its core requirements, weaponizing geography in terms of leveraging the straits and doing what it can to insulate and protect, create a zone of immunity for its billion-dollar proxy in Lebanon. So it is prepared, and you've seen this over the last several days, to ensure that no one is able to challenge what Iran now believes to be the new normal in straits, which is preferential access along prescribed routes, probably with navigational fees, environmental fees, tolls, protection money, or whatever you want to call it. And I think that the administration's response was more or less inevitable. Donald Trump has now promised a tougher response in today, tonight, and in coming days. Depending on what that response is, the Iranians will probably respond by striking Gulf infrastructure. If the president makes good on his repeated efforts to claim that from now on he's going to hit civilian infrastructure, electricity grids, power grids, bridges, dams, which I think is frankly horrific in terms of its implications, then I think you'll see what we haven't seen yet from the Iranians, which is a much more intensive effort to destroy civilian and oil infrastructure in key Gulf states. So again, John, I don't think we're going back to epic fury, and we're certainly not on the cusp of a deal. The new normal to me here is a prolonged period of economic and kinetic pressure applied by both Iran and the United States as each tries to test who's got more time.
Yes.
I'd only close by saying, I remember the words of the Taliban with respect to the Americans in Afghanistan. They said, you may have the clock, but we have the time.
Right, but you are describing a significant escalation, certainly from where we are now, with U.S. strikes on infrastructure in Iran, more and more significant targets, and then Iran reacting in the way that they did overnight with attacks on U.S. military facilities on the territory of various Gulf allies. But isn't that exactly the kind of thing that the American public are so unwilling to see, especially this side of the elections? Or do you think that there will be some element of restraint even in that outbreak of hostilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. That's what the president can do. I'm not suggesting that he's prepared. And again, I want to emphasize the truly horrific implications. As if he's prepared literally to make Iran thirsty and dark by destroying electric power grids and electricity generators.
Yeah.
And go after desal and water plants, then I think you are on the cusp of significant escalation.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's the case. I'm sure the president is somehow hoping that he can change Iran's calculations by this application of military pressure. I just don't think it's going to work.
But the attacks of the kind you described there would amount to a clear war crime.
I mean, no doubt about it. But but so you could argue were the boat strikes, which you referred to in the in the Caribbean and the Pacific. So again, I don't think that really is the point of vulnerability. Point of vulnerability for the president, he's in a box, John, and he can go on and on about how NATO loves him, and talk about the cession, but he's in a box alone. And frankly, I don't see much support from anyone else. The Chinese have not pressed the Iranians hard to open up. Europeans are missing in action. There's been some retrenchment in the European plan to create a sort of a maritime flotilla and deploy its own frigates and minesweepers. Yeah. It'll never help clear the straits. The president is a box, and he's alone. And what could change his calculations in terms of domestic politics? I mean, the financial markets, a point of vulnerability, rising oil prices, point of vulnerability, losses in the midterms. But I don't see how he gets out of the box, John. That's the real problem I have.
All right, Aaron David Miller, always good to get your thoughts. Now let me turn to General Ben Hodges, the former commanding general of the United States Army in Europe. General, great to have you back.
Thank you, John.
So you were hearing there the views of Aaron David Miller. I mean, his views are always worth hearing, aren't they? I mean, do give me a military commander's perspective of what you think the picture looks like now, with the president saying the ceasefire's over and contemplating, certainly in the short term, more and escalated hostilities.
Well, first of all, it absolutely is not a ceasefire. I mean, if the U.S. hit 80 targets last night and Iran hit 85 targets, that's it's not even a tenuous ceasefire. I mean, that's gone. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be at that level of intensity going forward, but it'd really be a stretch to say we're still in a ceasefire. I think that the president also, he and his Secretary of Defense, they still cling to this notion that, hey, we destroyed all their ships, their whole navy's at the bottom. It doesn't matter. The fact is, the Iranians are still able to disrupt or stop traffic in the Strait if ship captains and insurance companies don't have confidence. So it doesn't matter how many boats we have sunk of the Iranian Navy.
And they're still clearly, because they're showing this to be the case, they are still capable of aiming strikes at American military facilities among the neighbours in the Gulf, which will hurt those Gulf states, just as it's hurt them since the start of this conflict. That is a significant negative, isn't it? And we've now had notice given again, General, of an attempt perhaps to seize Carg Island on the Strait.
Yeah, if I'm the commander out there, Admiral Cooper, I would really wish the president would stop saying, hey, we're going to attack, a big strike tonight, or we might go after Carg Island. Why in the hell would he be advertising these things? It's just totally inappropriate. I think that we have seen, no matter how good our Navy and Air Force are, and I am very proud of their capabilities, we're seeing the limits of American power. If you're not willing to put boots on the ground there, and of course it would be a disaster if we did, you can't just bomb Iran into submission. It's not going to happen, especially given their ability to use drones now in such ways that they can shut the strait. So I think Aaron was exactly right. We've got to find another means of leverage, working with allies in the region and our European allies, things that should have been organized before this ever started, to get leverage on Iran somehow.
Yes. If we can turn to Ukraine, and good news for Ukraine, it was a surprise to hear the president announce that Ukraine were to be licensed to produce Patriot missiles, such an important component it will take some months to get there, but it will be such an important component in Ukraine's air defenses against the ballistic missiles that have been striking civilian apartment blocks in Kyiv and elsewhere night after night.
Yeah, this is the one area where Russia still has the upper hand, and it's in their ballistic missile attacks against innocent Ukrainian civilians in their apartment buildings. There's just not enough capabilities to intercept most of these ballistic missiles because of the type weapon they are, the speed at which they're moving. So you have to have Patriot or something like Patriot. So this will significantly expand the capacity for production of the interceptor missiles that the Patriot launches. But it will be quite some time before that's showing results. But I also was pleasantly surprised that the president has done this, and I wonder what has caused him. Maybe he and his team realized that the momentum has shifted in this war. Ukraine is in a much better position, and I think the president would like to somehow be on the winning side.
Well, that would be something positive, and we welcome some positive news of that kind. Although it does mean that in the time it takes to build this Patriot missile building capacity, Vladimir Putin and his forces have time to intensify those ballistic missile attacks in the hope of wearing down Ukrainian resolve and morale.
Yeah, I think that the Ukrainians are demonstrating that what we've known, strategic bombing never it has decisive effect by itself. With the German Luftwaffe bombing Great Britain, didn't work. The Allies bombing Germany didn't work. But what the Ukrainians are doing is they are withstanding these attacks, which are focused on civilian targets, and instead the Ukrainians are wrecking Russia's oil and gas export capability which over time will make it very difficult for Russia to pay for this war, to sustain it. So I think the Ukrainians are on the right path.
All right. General Ben Hodges, the former commander of the United States Army in Europe. It's great to have you with us as always.